And I wrote a letter, I received a letter from an organization, a quote-unquote Christian organization, about a discussion and forum that happened on Friday night with two of the representatives from Iowa and some other folks. There's one candidate who's running for state senate, and then this Christian organization, and one of their top agenda items was the Marriage Act between in Iowa that permits same-sex or same-gender people to get married in the state of Iowa, and that they were going to take that on and address it from a Christian moral standpoint. And I use parentheses because I often don't understand how one group can claim moral authority over all the other groups of people that live in this country. That's one thing that really does bother me when somebody stands up, and they usually have somebody like Pat Robertson or in his day Jerry Falwell and others stand up as though they represent Christian America, and they don't. There's many of you folks that represent Christian America as well, and it comes from perhaps a different perspective and a different vantage point, but you're also a voice, and an important voice in Christian and the Christian community. So I wrote a response to the letter, which I did send out an email to most of you. I hope most of you got it. And then I printed a copy. There was some variation on it to the nonpareil, and they called me on Friday and asked me if I was indeed Tom Neilsen, the pastor of First Congregational Church, and I said, yes, I am. At least I think I am. I wasn't quite sure at the time. It was a Friday morning. It was early. And then they asked me if they had my permission to go ahead and print that letter. And I said, of course they do. And they said they were really eager to print that. I want to make it clear from my vantage point that this issue is not about human sexuality. This issue is about justice. And we in the United Church of Christ, we as people who come from a long line of people who have thought justice is an important issue in the scriptures and in the church. An example of that would be the anti-slavery movement, which probably caused this church to be here in Council Bluffs because of the fact that they were going to vote on whether Nebraska would be a free or slave state. Is an important thing to me. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once stated that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And when we don't speak on behalf of justice, even if we perceive it to be a small injustice, then we are complicit in that injustice. Harvey Cox from Harvard Divinity School, and I don't often quote anybody from Harvard Divinity School, once said that to say nothing is to say something. Our silence can sometimes be thunderously loud. So when we find an injustice, we have to speak to that injustice. My basic position on this, again, is human rights. As you know, I have a very long history in human rights. I have a very long history in civil rights. Basically, it comes out of the belief that I grew up with as a kid, growing up in Chicago, that what is right is right. And if we don't speak for what is right, if we don't speak for what is just, if we allow the wrong to assume that it is right, then again, we are complicit. There's a saying from Alcoholics Anonymous, to live and let live. That's a basic and important value for us all to carry. There are people in this world that are not like us. They have different vantage points. They have different ideas. They have even different religions and different philosophies. And some even have a different gender preference. We are not judges. Only God judges. We are the voice of a God who proclaims justice to all people. It's extremely important. Now, you may not agree with me on this position, and that's fine. I understand that, and I respect that deeply. But I have a job to do, and my job is to be a spokesperson for the Christian community. And one of the things that bothers me the most, and this is probably the most important issue, and Stan, you supported that this morning at the Bible study, to assume, for some people to assume that they speak for all Christians in all parts of this country, that what they believe is the only thing to believe in Christianity is an offense to me. One of the geniuses, one of the beauties of the United Church of Christ, which we belong to, is that there is room, there is space in this community of faith for people to believe what they will believe, as long as we all hit the same goal. We can be different. We can be different and still exist within the same room as friends. I've had a couple of conversations this week, one with John and one with Stan, and we were talking about politics. You know, that's one of the worst things you can bring up in any context. And yet, when we both walked away, I'm assuming you will agree with me, both of you, even though we have probably a little bit of difference in vantage point, we walked away not only good friends, but with some sense of understanding that we were all headed in the right way. Am I right about that? Now, if we can do that, why can't the Congress of the United States do that? Amen is right. Amen.